And welcome back to Reunited States. From Manchester, New Hampshire, I am Jesse Saywell.
And from Los Angeles, California, my name is Tyler Ehrig.
And on today's episode, we want to get into the new development this week, which is Elon Musk. Shocker, he's at the center of nearly everything. You know, as someone who wanted to take Twitter back from people he saw as being overly political, it is interesting that he is now actively involved in rallies for the former president Donald Trump and obviously candidate to be president Donald Trump. But we've seen him offer $1 million a day to a randomly selected person who basically has pledged to register and vote in swing states. That's the essence of what's going on. I'll let Tyler dive into this more. This was reminiscent to me initially of Andrew Yang. For anyone who can remember Andrew Yang, his campaign in 2020 for the Democratic nomination. Andrew Yang now no longer identifies as a Democrat. I'm not sure what he is politically, but Andrew Yang, another billionaire, did something similar, saying that he would do like a lottery for if you signed up for his email page, signed up to get notifications for his campaign. He pledged to give $1 million out to people who did that, or some semblance of money that he was offering out to voters, which felt very much like it was bribing voters. And so I guess the question for you, Tyler, to get started is, what exactly is this phenomenon? What is Elon Musk offering? What is the history? How did all this get started, these billionaires getting involved in politics to the public extent that we see it now?
Money has always been a huge driver in American politics since the advent of modern politics, really. It's always been this huge driving force that can either launch a candidate to success or completely derail them. But it's really been the past 14 years that we've seen an egregious increase in spending for political campaigns, and we've seen individual donors, billionaires and millionaires, giving absorbent amounts of money to these candidates in a way that is frankly unprecedented. And before we go into that, it should be stated that Elon Musk's $1 million campaign registration stint is illegal. It's very illegal. You'll hear that he tries to get around it by saying it's only given to people who are signing up for a petition in his attempt to give a veil of legality to it. It doesn't matter. It's still illegal. It's still very, very illegal. It is still deeply tied to registration of voters, and specifically registration of voters in swing states, and even more specifically, registration of Republican voters in swing states, because that is who Elon Musk is supporting right now. He is supporting the Republican candidate for President Donald Trump. We really have to point at this and look at it seriously, because not only is this very scary for the amount of money that this person is giving away, $1 million is insane. The fact that he can toss it around like nothing is bananas to me. It's scary because you think about the amount of influence that's going to have and the amount of people that are going to be foaming at the mouth for this. It's really scary how much influence money can have. But going back a number of years here, in 2010, there was a Supreme Court case, Citizens United versus FEC, the Federal Election Committee. And this case was designed to hear the restriction on individual contributions to political campaigns. Previously, there were very heavy restrictions on the amount of money that any individual can contribute to a campaign. I believe it was somewhere in the 5 figures that was legal at the time. But since the Citizens United decision, that restriction had been pretty much eliminated completely. There is virtually no real limit to how much money an individual can contribute to a political campaign, with certain restrictions on communication with specifically the candidates. This has created what we now know as super PACs. PACs being political action committees, nonprofits designed to assist in the election of a certain candidate, and super PACs just being a mega charged version of those same nonprofits. These super PACs have the goal of spending virtually unlimited amounts of money on any election they want. This money comes from wealthy individuals mostly, but it also comes from corporations, unions, other groups as well. And we've seen so much money pouring into campaigns. And in 2024, which has been the most expensive campaign in history, we're seeing it increase to a degree unheard of previously. As of 2024, they have spent a little over $3.7 billion to date on elections across the board, which again is a number that I can't even conceive, and I would imagine most people can't conceive. Just to give you a few numbers of what we're looking at right now, in the 2024 election cycle, pre-Kamala Harris's entry, we saw Timothy Mellon, a businessman, donating $50 million to a Trump super PAC. And similarly, around the same time, Mike Bloomberg, former mayor of New York City, gave $20 million to Biden's super PAC. And so just some of the numbers that you can expect to hear being tossed around to political campaigns. And again, like, this money is really the lifeblood of most campaigns. Like, when they stop, the campaign stops, especially in primaries. They really do decide how far a campaign can run. To me, at least, the scariest part of the new age super PACs and kind of what we're getting into here is really the amount of what we call dark money influencing the amount of money going into these elections. And by dark money, we mean any money that we can't account for. Most laws will say that any super PAC that has donated money has to indicate where that money is coming from, right? Whether it's an individual, whether it's a charity, whether it's a specific group or a union. However, there is one specific group that does not have this restriction. It's called a 501c Group 4. And 501c4s, they're political nonprofit charity organizations. They have no legal requirement to disclose where money is coming from. They can collect it from wherever they want. They can siphon it to whoever they want. In the scariest forms of this, they could be coming from outside factors, right? That's what most people, I think, are afraid of this when they hear these numbers coming around. This could be money coming in from anywhere outside the U.S. in an attempt to influence the election. You know, when we've heard so much about election interference in the past 4 to 8 years from both sides, we've heard about Russia running election interference attempts in 2016. Trump, of course, with his infamous claims of election interference in 2020 and continued claims of election interference in 2024. Well, this is kind of the reality of where that might be coming from. Like, this is where the interference might actually be happening right now, is this money that we have no idea where it's coming from. And frankly, a lot of it's going to Trump right now. And that's kind of the scary thing, is we need to know where this money is coming from. And frankly, we don't. But that's kind of on the side, because when you look at what super PACs mean for candidates now, it's really, it's an evolution of this big money influence in election. We're going to talk about this a bit later, but yes, we can say that the money itself has had less of an impact on the specific electing of a candidate. But at the end of the day, they are still highly, highly influential on various decisions that happen behind closed doors. Most recently and famously, Kevin McCarthy becoming Speaker of the House. When he failed all of those House votes to become Speaker, and he had to finally have some closed door conversations to finally garner enough votes to become Speaker for as little time as he did, he spoke to super PACs. He didn't speak to his colleagues. He didn't call up his buddies in the Republican Party in the House. He spoke to their PACs. He spoke to their donors. And he said, please do something to convince them to vote for me. Now, whether that was them withholding money or giving more money, we'll never know. But clearly you see where the power is when Kevin McCarthy has to speak to these guys and not, the actual people who were elected. This is all spiraled into now this idea that now these popular billionaires and important figures, global important figures, are now coming out supporting outright. It's no longer behind PACs and super PACs. They're now on stage. As Tim Waltz say it, they're on stage jumping around like dipshits. They're and they're very open about it. They're open about who they're supporting, and the amount of money they have is now being flaunted in a way where people are enamored by it. We've always had this fascination with wealthy, especially wealthy, successful people. I mean, I would argue that's mostly how Trump got elected, right? This fascination of like, wow, that person is so wealthy, that person is so quote unquote successful, that they must be brilliant at not just the one thing that they probably are smart at, but everything. And they think that by default, that makes them a great choice for anything they want and anything they hope to seek. And this is now with Musk, right? I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was very enamored by Musk way back in the day, maybe in the Tesla days, when he actually was making huge strides in technology and advancement. And people to this day are still enamored with him. But now it's like he's using that to push a goal that is frankly dangerous. And so at what point do we have to step back and look at these people like, okay, you're rich, you have all this money, you can influence whatever you want to influence, but should you be? And should we continue to be enamored, and should we continue to look up to these individuals as if they know everything just because they are successful? So what's the goal here? Because, I mean, obviously it's not philanthropic. These people aren't a bunch of Warren Buffetts who just sit at home and say, oh yeah, I just kind of support a candidate and I'm going to throw money at them. Like, these people are front and center. Like, Elon Musk is there on stage with him, talking about how he dodged a bullet, pushing conspiracy theories, both on X and in person. What's the goal? Why is he doing this?
Ooh, I mean, we could go into a whole long list of things, but at its core, these billionaires want influence. And that's not new. What's new is that it's so obvious and transparent and visible in society, and that we're no longer hiding it. We're no longer, it's not like the Koch brothers that are like in the shadows, or, as the right likes to talk about George Soros, kind of the people in the shadows who are funding things. It's now so out in the open, which you would think would make it less dangerous, but it's actually much more dangerous because there's so much public support for it. It is, Trump again has done so many things to change norms, and he did so many things saying the quiet part out loud that everything becomes normalized eventually. And this is just another one of those examples of where he took advantage of Citizens United and continues to, and now you see people like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel starting to lean his way because they believe that he's someone that can be manipulated for their own purposes. Nowhere is this really clearer than with Elon Musk, who, in my opinion, wants to run the United States. And I say this as someone who also believes that Elon Musk has genius within him. He is, in many ways, a genius innovator. When we look at the 20th century into the 21st century, we're going to talk about Elon Musk as being one of the great minds in terms of innovation. But how else we're going to talk about him is still to be determined. And as you said, the way that he uses that power that he has grown over the years is starting to be really disturbing. And it's actually not starting to be disturbing. It is disturbing. As you said, what he is doing right now with trying to bribe voters, I don't care what you call it, it's trying to bribe voters. It's illegal. And even if your argument is it's not illegal, which is people are making that argument through loopholes and whatever, it should be illegal. We should all be able to agree that he shouldn't be able to do this. The billionaires want influence, and they want to run the government. And you have Musk now, whose companies are actively involved in multiple critical aspects of the federal government and state governments for that matter, but especially the federal government. His companies are intricately involved in the workings of the government, from NASA on into a whole bunch of other areas in which we defer to technologies that are run by companies owned by Musk. And so he has already accumulated immense power within our government, and he wants more. And I think he sees Trump as the person that will allow him to continue to work unchecked, without any sort of check on him and his power structure. And the thing is, I do believe that Elon Musk believes that he is a hero in his own story. I always talk about this, when I'm teaching screenwriting or playwriting or any of this. The antagonist always believes they're the hero in their story. And I believe he thinks he is. I think he thinks that this is his way of saving the world and that he's trying to save the world. The problem is he's an egomaniac. The problem is that he has gone down these rabbit holes of conspiracy theories, and he is actively spreading misinformation now in a way that is absolutely deadly and dangerous. And so the things that he's saying about voting machines, all of these crazy conspiracy theories, heinously dangerous. The conspiracy theories that he has thrown out, the very anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that he has thrown out, deeply problematic. This all speaks to a larger problem, though, which is that I believe American voters, and not everyone, of course, but I believe there is a significant number of American voters who have given up on democracy. Bernie Sanders always warns against oligarchy, but that's exactly what many voters now want. If you look up the definition of oligarchy, it is, quote, a small group of people having control of a country, organization, or institution, end quote. There are millions, and I repeat, millions of Americans that now believe in that. They believe that essentially in a dictator. We've heard it at Trump's rallies. They believe that a dictator is what is needed because they are tired of the gridlock in Washington. They're tired of the slog of democracy. Things are not moving fast enough for them. Relief does not come fast enough. Democrats, on the other hand, are largely running currently. Kamala Harris, among all Democrats, are running on this idea of defending democracy, but they don't understand why they're struggling to move the needle. The reason they're struggling to move the needle in polls, and if anything, Trump has momentum and conservatives have momentum right now, it's because so many people don't view that as a problem. They view democracy as the problem. And this goes back to, I've talked about this on previous episodes, so I'm not going to go in any significant depth, but Ronald Reagan's attacks on government in the 1980s, attacks against government bureaucracy. Government doesn't solve problems. Government is the problems. These are the seeds of where this comes from. It was planted in the minds of the American people, and it has only grown since then. So to your point earlier, does money change elections in the way it used to? No, I don't believe so. If you look at the numbers, does money influence campaigns? Democrats had large fundraising advantages in 2020 in a lot of key places that they did not win. Senator John Tester in Montana right now has a significant fundraising advantage over his opponent. Sadly, because I love John Tester and I think that there needs to be more rural Democrats and rural state Democrats and Democrats that actually represent these communities very well. But I think John Tester's heading for defeat. I think he's going to lose by 5 or more, maybe upwards of 10 points in Montana, solely because of partisanship now, in spite of the fact that he has a significant, what we call a war chest of funds available to him. And we saw that in 2020 repeatedly. Candidates that had more money did not always win in the way that they have in the past.
But at the same time, the existence of that money and the power that super PACs have to either withhold money or give them more money, that does influence their campaigns. Because the moment they rescind a war chest, the moment they close that chest, they're done. We see that in primaries all the time. Like, the campaigns don't finish because they just arbitrarily decide, oh yeah, you know what, I give up.
Yeah.
They end their campaigns because their super PACs tell them, we are no longer giving you money because you are no longer going to win. And that does influence elections there.
You're 100% correct. And I wouldn't, again, money does matter in politics. It does matter in campaigns. And, if there was anything that drove Joe Biden out of the race, it was George Clooney, and it was it was the donors, the big donors of the Democratic Party saying, I am not going to continue to give you money because I don't believe you can win and we need someone else. Not just the big donors, also the small donors. It was everyone in that situation. But yes, money matters. But it doesn't matter as much as it used to in terms of who wins and loses. The real influence now is on how people govern once they're in office. And these politicians are beholden, and now it is so public how beholden they are to some of these big dollar donations and donors. And when you have someone like Elon Musk, who is already involved in the government and now is actively trying to bribe voters to get his choice for president into the White House, again, so that he can run a Musk, he can do whatever he wants to do, that's deeply disturbing and concerning. That's, at its core, again, goes back to this whole thing. Do we want a democracy? Do we want an oligarchy? Do we want a democracy? Bernie Sanders keeps saying, we're on the way to oligarchy. We get that. A lot of people genuinely want that. That's the problem. And so Democrats have not done, in my opinion, a good enough job of explaining what that is. Also, the other thing that I have to say about Musk, this guy is not an American, not a born American. And that sounds like, oh, we're talking about otherism. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about he does not have any sort of national loyalty to the United States. This guy is from South Africa. He's made racist statements. He's made anti-Semitic statements. South Africa, I've been there, not the greatest history of race relations in South Africa. So we're just going to say that. These are all red flags that should be disturbing us and concerning us about if we want this person in charge of our government, which he essentially already is, and certainly if Trump is elected, he will be in an even greater capacity. That's the thing that I don't feel like we've talked about enough. Elon Musk should be a scary figure to a lot of people. Yes, genius. But there's been a lot of geniuses in the history of the world who have not used their genius for good, and even if he means to, right now it seems very clear that he is intent on using his genius and using his wealth that he has accumulated as a result of it to empower himself. And that should scare everyone.
Brilliantly said, Jesse. We really do have to start looking at this with a much closer eye as we reach into an era of American politics involving these large multi-millionaire, billionaire individuals, because someone needs to hold them accountable. If the American people existed to hold the government officials, elected officials accountable, then something has to be done to hold billionaire individuals accountable, because if elected officials won't, if our leaders won't, then there's nobody else. There's nobody else that can stop Elon Musk from creating his army of robots or whatever. It falls on us. It falls on the American people to be the eyes, the ears, and most importantly, the mouths to ensure that we don't fall into a Wall-E situation where the entire world's just owned by global corporations and we all get fat and go to space. But with that, let's move on to things we can all agree on. We both have some grievances to air. I'll go ahead and start here. I think trick-or-treating needs to come back. When we were kids, trick-or-treating was all the rage. I remember going out every year from when I was a little kid in elementary school all the way through middle school and even high school. And the streets were filled, man. Like neighborhoods, and yes, granted, I lived in the big city, sure, whatever, but still, the neighborhoods were filled with groups of kids just going to and fro, house to house to house to house, fighting for like the largest piece of candy. And it was fun. It was an experience. It was a culture. It was a Halloween culture for kids to do that, to goof off with their friends when they're old enough, and when they're young enough to, go with their parents or with groups. But it's gone. Something happened, and this is pre-COVID. There's nothing to do with COVID. Somehow it just disappeared. We no longer wanted trick-or-treating to be a thing, and I want to say the last 10 years, and again, big city experience right here, 10 years, and I get like 3 trick-or-treaters at my place. My grandparents, who live in a very nice part of greater LA area, get like maybe 10, when they used to get in the hundreds. And that's in a nice part of town. It's dead. It's a dead culture, and it's sad because it's such, at least to me, it's so quintessential to the child experience, to growing up, having those communal experiences. We got to bring it back. I don't know what happened, but we got to do something different. The new parents of today, join with me. We got to bring this back. We got to, for the kids, to reinvigorate the spirit of Americans. We got it. We got to do something about this.
That is the first step to reuniting the states, is bringing back trick-or-treating. I couldn't agree with you more. I wholeheartedly agree with this. And I also am saddened by kind of the decline of it and baffled by it. I think that we have gone potentially too far now in trying to shield our kids to the point where, like, we've taken away community opportunities. Like, this is an opportunity for you to be more in touch with your local community and your neighbors and to show signs of goodwill. But so on my end, going off of Halloween, I'm going to go into the fact that Halloween decorations go off the shelves too soon, And Christmas decorations go up way too quickly. I went recently to Lowe's as a recent homeowner. I went to Lowe's on let's just say October 10th, something like that. And there were only like 2 or 3 Halloween decorations still available. They were on sale, which I was thrilled about, I will say. But on October 10th, it seems odd that there would be that few. And yet, the entire store is covered in Christmas decorations. Now, I am sorry. Again, we can talk about the fact that Christmas should not immediately start the minute Halloween is over. Can we give, at least, a week and a half? I'm even okay. The people who are not until after Thanksgiving. I get that. But stores have to get stuff out in advance, and some people want to, have their stuff bought before Thanksgiving so they can put it up after, the weekend after. So I'm not upset about that. But we can't start putting up the Christmas decorations and pushing to the side the Halloween decorations a month before Halloween. This is crazy. I'm simply baffled by it. I love decorating. I'm excited to decorate for Christmas. I love decorating for Halloween, but let's be reasonable about this. We don't need Christmas decorations to be out front in the middle of October. At least wait until November, and ideally, please, wait until November 10th or something like that for us to do the real push with the commercials and all of this stuff. Give us a little bit of time post-Halloween for things to settle before we get into the real holiday push. So that's my thought on Christmas.
It's a great thought, and if I were to inject my own opinion, or at least my wife's own opinion on this, please don't forget about Thanksgiving.
I agree.
Listen, regardless of what your thoughts on the history of Thanksgiving is, as it is pretty tumultuous when you think about it, it's still an American holiday where, we all get together as a family and we have a meal. Come on, it's important.
Yeah, celebrating Thanksgiving doesn't mean you're celebrating pilgrims, okay? It's been hundreds of years. You're celebrating family. Be thankful. That's a great thing to do. It's a good tradition to be appreciative of family and friends and the close people in your lives.
Amen to that. And with that, that is our show. Thank you all so much for listening. From Los Angeles, California, my name is Tyler Ehrig.
And from Manchester, New Hampshire, I am Jesse Saywell.
And this has been Reunited States. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.